here we go with a little story time. So 5 years ago, myself and 17 of my close buddies from college all lived here in the city of Chicago. Now, 5 years later, in 2022, almost 2023, there's only 3 of us left. I know, all my friends have left me. They've all left for various different reasons, but actually these 5 reasons that we're gonna cover in today's video are the 5 reasons why you should not move to Chicago. Welcome back to the video. My name is Jordan Pyle. I'm your go-to Chicago real estate agent, and I've been living in Chicago for the last 10 years. Every year I'm continuing to love it more and more, but sometimes I do question why I live here because of the reasons that we're gonna discuss in today's video. If this information has been valuable to you and it's helped you with your decision making on whether you should move to Chicago or not, please do me a favor and like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're feeling super generous, feel free to share this video with a couple friends. Before you go, make sure you check out some of the free resources down in the description. All right, let's get into it. All right, number 5, taxes in Chicago. If you talk to somebody that's left Chicago, well, high tax rates for income tax, sales tax, and property taxes is likely one of the main reasons why. For your income tax, Chicago has a flat tax rate of 4.95%. For your sales tax, you're taxed on goods for right around 11, just under 11% at 10.25% on your sales tax. And then lastly, and one that a lot of people give a lot of grief about, are your property taxes. Your property taxes come in right between 1.5 and 2%. It's somewhere around like 1.6%. So to paint a picture of this, if you own a $500,000 home, every year you can expect to pay about $7,500 in annual taxes. And the way that property taxes work here in Chicago is they are reassessed every 3 years, so triannually. So every 3 years, they're gonna reassess the property depending on a lot of different factors, and most of the time these tax bills are gonna go up. So every 3 years when the new tax bills are getting ready to come out, a lot of people are holding their breath because there have been years where you've seen 25% increases in certain areas of the city for year-over-year tax increases. So Chicago taxes, annual taxes for income, sales tax, and property taxes are the first reason, or in this list, the 5th reason why you should not move to Chicago. The number 4 reason why you do not want to move to Chicago, you're gonna have brutal winters. So everyone has heard about Chicago winters, and yes, 10 years ago was my very first winter in Chicago, and let me tell you, it was an eye-opener. I'm a Midwesterner at heart. I'm from Indiana, I'm from Fort Wayne, so I've always grown up with seasons and cold winters, and something about Chicago that makes the cold winters even that much colder. Likely because we have the lake effect, so we get a ton of snowstorms coming off of Lake Michigan, and then you also have really high winds in the wintertime, and that combination, in combination as well with like wet cold, Chicago can just be very, very brutal for about 4 or 5 months out of the year. Between end of April and early October, Chicago, I will put it hands down, I will put it up against any other city in the country for places to live during, let's just say, May through September. It is the greatest place on earth. But as soon as late October comes around and into, let's just call it, late February, March, and even into April, you just gotta be prepared for the winter. So if you're driving, you gotta make sure that you have a shovel, you're prepared to scrape snow and ice off your car, and that you have 4-wheel drive to be able to get around the city. If you're doing public transportation, then you definitely need to make sure you have hats, gloves, scarves, being able to have the ability to be fully basically covered except for your eyes and even your eyes. Because sometimes we even have weather advisories where it gets as cold as -20 to -30 with wind chill here in Chicago. So that would be another reason why a lot of people decide not to move to Chicago. So if you can't stand brutal winters, even though the spring, summer, and the fall are so sweet here in the city, Chicago winters will make you a better person. So if you're not ready and prepared for that, then maybe Chicago's not the best place for you. All right, the 3rd reason why you should not move to Chicago is Chicago traffic. Chicago comes in as the 3rd most congested city in the country with 168 average traffic hours stuck in traffic every single year. So you spend about 6 days of your life every single year stuck in traffic if you live in Chicago. Now, obviously some people spend longer in traffic than others. Some people only do public transportation, some people drive, but traffic in general is another huge reason why people like to avoid Chicago. I know, for example, my mom, she could never live in Chicago because she simply would not ever go anywhere because she is so petrified and scared of the roads and the traffic that I could see why a lot of people choose not to come to a big city, specifically Chicago, because of that reason. So, my average commute time every single place I go is probably somewhere between 15 to 30 minutes. So quick little 5-10 minute excursions out to go run errands is usually not going to happen. And if I'm going in and out of the city, so if I'm going to the suburbs or going from the suburbs into the city without traffic, you know, some places in the suburbs could be 45 minutes to an hour. That same drive with traffic during rush hour in the morning or in the evening, that same drive could be upwards of an hour and a half to 2 hours. So you really just need to understand traffic. You need to understand when people are moving around and migrating throughout the city, being able to make it convenient on yourself, whether you're driving yourself, you're taking public transportation, you're adding in buffers of time so that if you need to commute somewhere, you are adding time on the end of your meeting so that you're not late if something were to happen. But traffic is the number 3 reason why you should consider moving to Chicago, and maybe decide not to move to Chicago because of the crazy traffic here. All right, and the number 2 reason why you should not move to Chicago is Chicago politics. Chicago politics is known to be corrupt. And I am not somebody that often goes into politics in any matter, whether it be on this YouTube channel, talking about national, global politics. I just don't really even go into that realm. So I'm not gonna go onto it in this video, but let's just say there are a lot of people that are frustrated with the local leadership here in the city and just their general kind of operation and handling of whether it be crime, whether it be managing a budget, or whether it be getting taxes under control. This is just some of the reasons why local politics scene here is kind of a mess in Chicago. And I think if we don't start to see some different things happening on a city level with our local leadership, I think a lot more people are going to continue leaving Chicago. But this is definitely one of the top 2 reasons why I see people leaving Chicago, or people that have lived in Chicago their whole entire lives actually contemplating leaving this city because the Chicago political scene has gotten so bad and we just have a lot of people that are unhappy with leadership, let's just put it that way. So definitely take this into consideration if you're moving here, and I'm a believer that positivity is always the winner. So I think that things will eventually move in the right direction here. As soon as they do, Chicago is Chicago, and there are so many perks of living here, but the political scene right now definitely has a lot of room for improvement. All right, before we get into the last reason, which is the number 1 reason why you should not move to Chicago, I just wanna say thank you again for watching this video. I hope it's been helpful. If it has, I have a lot of free resources down in the description about different neighborhood guides and different ways to get in touch with me to talk about your real estate goals. So if you are making a move into Chicago or around in Chicago in 2023, I'd be honored to help you out. My information's right here. You can just text me on my cell phone number. I also have the links for the guides and everything down in the description. So go and feel free to check those out. And check out this video right here, which is actually talking about Lincoln Park, which is my favorite neighborhood in Chicago and what it's like living there. Number 1 reason why people are leaving Chicago is Chicago crime. And in the last 2 to 3 years specifically, since the pandemic, I would say if you polled anybody that has left Chicago to move somewhere else, crime is probably the number 1 reason that it's gonna come to mind and the first thing that they're gonna say. And this is just kind of a sad thing because as the pandemic has kind of swept across the country and swept across the city, we saw a lot of things that were out of order happen. A lot of different protests and marches going around the city. We have a lot of political unrest. We have a lot of social unrest. There's just been an uptick in crime, and I definitely take it into consideration now. You know, some things that I used to do in the past at night that maybe I second guess and I don't do that anymore. Making sure that I have, you know, certain transportation set up, or just being conscious of what's happening, making sure I'm staying out of trouble, not putting myself into situations where crime could have a negative effect on me. If you do these things, kind of keep your head on a swivel, as you should in any big city, not just Chicago, then you're gonna be okay. And crime is definitely something that a lot of leadership and a lot of citizens and residents of Chicago say that is the number 1 thing that they need to get under control for Chicago to be the incredible city that it is. Although crime happens to certain people anywhere throughout the city, there's definitely certain populated areas or different pockets of the city where crime is worse than others. So before you move to Chicago, you want to take into consideration these 5 reasons why you should not move to Chicago. And if you are, I would love to help you in your transition. Feel free to just text me, my number on the screen, and we'll catch you on the next video. All right, peace.